All right, Titans, it's Mr. Spilker here, and I'm going to take you through Chapter 3, Section 1, and Chapter 3, Section 2. This is an optional teaching video. If you feel like you understand the information from the handout that we gave you after the quiz today, then you do not need to go through this video and take notes, but it's a second option. If you didn't really understand what was going on from the handout, then this video is for you. So go ahead and write down 3-1, 3-2, solving one-step equations. Solving one-step equations. Chapter 3, Section 1, Chapter 3, Section 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, solving equations. You have solved some equations before in this class, and we've always, so far, up to this point, used just mental math to do so. But sometimes the solution is not so easy to see, and you cannot do mental math. So we need another option. And that method is going to be what we call using inverse operations. Inverse operations undo each other. For example, to undo addition, you would do the opposite, subtraction. So we say that addition and subtraction are inverse operations, and multiplication and division are inverse operations. So your inverse operations are the opposite operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. All right, let's get into solving equations. To solve an equation means to find a solution to the equation. So to do this, what your goal is to isolate the variable. You always want to pick on that variable. This is the only time it's acceptable to be a bully. You want to isolate the variable. You want to get that variable all by itself. All of its friends have to leave. The variable has to be alone. So if you look at this, these two examples on the left side, these are examples where the variable is isolated. As you can see, x is all by itself on the left side. And as you can see, y is all by itself on the right side. These variables are not isolated. On the first one, here, x is being joined by 5. And on the bottom one, y is being joined by 3. So, when you solve an equation, your goal is to isolate the variable. To isolate the variable, you're going to use inverse operations. Now, keep in mind, an equation is like a balanced scale. Whatever you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the other. So if you decide you're going to isolate the variable by subtracting 8, then you must subtract 8 from the other side of the equal sign also. It's just like weight training. If I'm down in the weight room and I put 45 pounds on one side of the bar, I better add 45 pounds on the other side of the bar. Otherwise, I'm going to fall down and have an accident. So just keep in mind, an equation is like a balanced scale. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. All right, ladies and gentlemen, example number 1. Example 1, solve 13x equals 91. So 13 times what number is equal to a negative 91? Well, I don't know that in my head, so I'm going to go ahead and use inverse operations. To solve an equation, you want to get x by itself. So to get x by itself, I got to get rid of this 13. To get rid of this 13, I do the opposite operation. The opposite of multiplication is division. What I do to one side of an equation, I must do to the other. So I divide both sides by 13, and I'm left with x equals, and then 91 divided by 13 is negative 7. So my answer is x equals negative 7. All right, next example, z minus 7 is equal to 41. Once again, to solve the equation, I want to get z by itself. So to get z by itself, I got to get rid of this minus 7. To get rid of the minus 7, I do the opposite. I add 7 to both sides. That leaves me with my variable isolated, and 41 plus 7 is 48. So to solve an equation, you isolate the variable, and to get the variable by itself, you do the opposite operation, inverse operations. Last two teaching examples of the video here. We got y plus 37 equals negative 110. To solve this one, to get y by itself, I would subtract 37 from each side. And when I subtract 37, the y is isolated, which was my goal. And then on the right side, negative 10 minus 37 would be negative 147. Then on the second one, example number 4 of our teaching video here, I want to get a by itself. So to get a by itself, I got to get rid of 529. 529 is being subtracted, so I add it to both sides. And then that gives me my solution of a equals 985. 985. All right, Titans, hopefully that helps you better understand how to solve one-step equations. Remember, the goal is to isolate the variable by using inverse operations.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.